So it turns out Zach Levine had to go supernova to get the Bulls to commit to getting better. That in itself is absurd since Levine will have the option to leave Chicago in a season and a half. Nevertheless, the Bulls did it. They spent resources on proven players. But now that the Bulls have made this commitment, the question becomes, how close are the Bulls to being an actual good team? Naturally, people are going to question if this help, specifically Vucevic, was worth 2 future first-round picks, and these people will cite the Bulls' youth and lack of obvious championship potential as reasons the Bulls may regret making this trade. But I agree with these additions for the same reason I agreed with the Gordon Hayward and Steven Adams additions. To put it shortly, being bad is good for collecting assets, but being bad is bad for developing, evaluating, and keeping assets. The latter is the situation the Bulls have grown to find themselves in. But difficult questions looming over the franchise's future, like can they keep Levine, and should they keep Lauri Markkanen? They also need to develop Patrick Williams and Kobe White, with Williams being a player that the Bulls hope can be a home run pick. But this is exactly why Vucevic is worth 2 future first round picks, because these are all issues that Vucevic can help the Bulls with. Ideally, Vucevic can convince Levine that the team is growing alongside his rise to stardom. Vucevic's presence on the floor immediately adds spacing for Levine to take advantage of, as his quick release and confident shot will force opposing shot blockers to stick around the perimeter. He also adds an elite pick and roll partner for Levine to work with, and Vucevic's post presence adds some playmaking and diversity to a Bulls offense that has too often resorted to riding the coattails of Levine. So improving the team while making Levine's life easier should lead to Levine feeling enabled. This is vitally important for the Bulls, because Levine is a free agent at the end of the next year, and it is clear Levine would be fought over by teams all around the league. The Bulls know that keeping Levine is important because the Bulls have experienced how uncertain life can be when a team loses their young star, as the Bulls did recently with Jimmy Butler. And to a player like Zach LaVine, who is entering his prime, rookies and future picks are not going to keep him interested in Chicago, especially when LaVine, in his 7th season, has never played on a team that wasn't in the bottom third of the league. So in a sense, the Bulls had their back against the metaphorical wall, and they were forced there by the prodigious season LaVine is having. But an important distinction is that these additions will only help push the Bulls towards winning basketball, and that the roster is still major moves away from doing anything special. Therefore, it is also important that the Bulls maximize their young players offensively, and thus, these additions should be seen as an investment by the Bulls in their players' development. For Lauri Markkanen, this means more open shots and more opportunities to attack the weak side of the defense. I think the case of Markkanen is interesting because I suspect the addition of Vucevic means the Bulls don't want to keep Markkanen, primarily because the Bulls will struggle to build a strong defense whenever they are both on the floor. If what I suspect is true, then this means the Bulls need to inflate Lauri's value so they can maximize an opportunity for a sign and trade this offseason. This could prove to be a rewarding plan, as Lauri's size and offensive production could be viewed as valuable by a team that already has a strong defender at the center position. The Knicks, for one, could make sense. So this is a moment of truth for Markkanen. He's going to get minutes no matter how he performs, and therefore will have ample opportunities to produce in pressure situations this season, which will help the Bulls and the rest of the league evaluate his value. This same sentiment applies to Kobe White, who in his 2nd season has already shown the ability to be an explosive volume scorer, but he has yet to prove that he can be a reliable point guard in this league, which he needs to do if he wants to get starter level money. With that said, it's most likely that Kobe's future with the Bulls will be as a Jordan Clarkson bench style player, with a score first mentality that could energize a team around him, especially if the Bulls manage to land a free agent point guard like Lonzo Ball in the offseason. Now that might not be the role that Kobe envisions for himself, since he was a high lottery draft pick, but every good team has a need for a bench scorer, and if Kobe can play within the team and produce in meaningful minutes, then he can convince the front office that he deserves to be seen as a part of the team's future core, alongside Levine, Vucevic, and Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams was the 4th overall pick in this year's draft, and is a player that the Bulls and their surrounding media like to compare to Kawhi Leonard. This is a lofty comparison for a young player who shot up draft boards during the compressed offseason, and it is a comparison that is sure to put a metric ton of pressure on the young kid's shoulders. With all that said, Williams is a fairly rough offensive prospect, with low usage and low overall efficiency, but he has talent and potential, with a big frame and a decently reliable shot from beyond the arc. I believe a big reason the Bulls acquired Vucevic is to help in the offensive development of Williams. They want to develop his catch and shoot ability and his ability to attack the rim, and the spacing Vucevic provides should lead to easier opportunities for Williams overall. However, Williams is still skinny for his role, with players like DeRozan being being able to bully him without expending much effort. And since Williams is primarily a defensive player, this poses a big obstacle for the Bulls to hurdle in their quest for meaningful success. Al-Farouq Aminu may help the Bulls deal with bigger wings like Tatum, Butler, and Harden, but the Bulls are going to want to play Patrick Williams in big games, and is most likely too early in his physical development for him to turn in impactful defensive performances against the game's best wings. Still, this push for the playoffs is going to be a good learning experience for Williams, and that should benefit the Bulls, who are hoping Williams develops quickly enough to match Levine's timing. The last thing I want to say about the Bulls is that Thaddeus Young is a baller, and I'm excited to see him play next to Vucevic this season, as I think their combined playmaking could lead to some entertaining basketball possessions. Now, the reason I want to talk about the Nuggets in relation to the Bulls is that the Nuggets have actually made a win-now move. The Nuggets are a franchise that has drafted well for years and has consistently developed their talent by putting them in positions to succeed. The team experienced the trials and tribulations of playoff runs, and every time they have come back better than next season. So now that the team has traded for Aaron Gordon, they have put themselves in a situation where they will soon be forced to pay the luxury tax, but they have also put themselves in a position to win a championship. And in a knee-jerk reaction, I am all in on the Nuggets for all the imaginary dough that I own. I'm talking Monopoly money, Settlers of Catan resources, all of it is currently going to the center of the coffee table. I'm saying this fully aware that there are great teams with better odds to win the finals, but when I look at this Nuggets team, and I look at 30-1 odds, yeah, I am game. Let's get fake rich. The first thing I have to say is that Jokic originally won me over when he played 65 minutes in the 2019 postseason game against the Trailblazers. The determination he showed in that game convinced me that he was a historically special competitor. Still, I hadn't been sold on the team yet, mainly because I felt that Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. weren't ready for the biggest stages that the NBA had to offer. However, I am finally bullish on the Nuggets, largely because of the growth that has occurred within the Nuggets trio of star talent. The most obvious one is Jokic, who has made his superstar status undebatable. For years, he has made everyone around him better, and for years, he has possessed all the tools required to create offense in playoff games. But this Jokic is tougher, in better shape, and more committed to winning than ever before. He has majorly improved his relationship with referees, which was an issue for him last year, and he has noticeably grown as a leader. To me, this guy was already a problem 2 years ago, and the fact that he continues to improve from year to year speaks to the quality of character that he possesses. Just like when he dug deep to play 65 minutes over 4 overtime, my stock in 2021 Jokic is as much about his personality as it is about his ability. Next is Jamal Murray, who has received a lot of flack for not playing as effectively as he did in the bubble. But those critics have missed the fact that he has been rehabbing injuries, and his recently improved play would indicate that he is getting healthy again. But what is important to me about Murray is that he is more mature than he was at the start of last season. In my opinion, Murray is going to be a bright star in this league, and the only question has been when he will put it all together. To this point, I had noticed that he seemed more focused coming back to the bubble last year. Then Murray ignited in the bubble with a record-setting scoring pace, and even in the series loss to the stout Lakers defense, he averaged 25 points and 7 assists. Now this season, with a taste of defeat from being so close to the finals, and the maturity that comes from dealing with the long rehab process, I see Murray arriving into his prime, a seasoned veteran who is well aware of what it takes to win a championship. And if Murray showed us all one thing last year, it is that this guy is not afraid of the big stage. With all this said, the most impressive growth for the Nuggets has been that of Michael Porter Jr. If I am being frank, I was never sold on Michael Porter Jr. His struggles on defense seemed like a bad match to play next to Jokic and Murray, and his personality seemed to crave the spotlight in a system that is more team-oriented. I doubted his ability to accept his role as a third option, and I wondered if the Nuggets should have traded him in the last season. However, MPJ has so far proved me wrong. MPJ has instead embraced his role, almost reminding me of Klay Thompson in the sense that he can score 30 points in a game with what seems like 5 dribbles. His catch-and-shoot 3 is also great for the Nuggets spacing, because he has the height and high release point to get a quality shot off over any shot contester. And his off-ball movement has improved tremendously, as he is constantly catching the ball on cuts and scoring around the rim in a plethora of ways. He also looks totally at home playing the 4, with a height and athleticism that makes him a quality rebounder and a respectable shot blocker, with a frame that also makes him a solid screen setter. Moreover, he is a decent playmaker, and I like that the Nuggets let him run point whenever he secures a defensive rebound, because he is elite at pushing the ball in the open court. He also is a dangerous ball handler in pick and rolls, which he can run with Jokic or Aaron Gordon. Overall, I think he can be a perfect athletic four to play next to Jokic, even if he still lacks defensive consistency, like the occasional lazy closeout or weak help defense. And at 22 years old, he still has some basketball maturing to do, but the Nuggets have found a perfect spot for him in their system because they don't ask him to do too much, and they only ask him to do what he excels at. And in return, Michael Porter Jr. can create serious matchup problems for opposing teams. To that end, Aaron Gordon is now joining the Nuggets to play the three, and he looks to be an ideal piece for them because he improves so many aspects of the team. For instance, Gordon's ability to play the three means that Will Barton can play the two, where his height and physicality can be more advantageous. Gordon's presence also means that Paul Millsap moves permanently to the bench, where he can be an impactful vet, and JaMychal Green moves deeper into the rotation, where he can be a utility option. Gordon is also going to provide a giant moving target for Jokic to find on backcuts, which promises to provide a steady flow of highlight reel dunks. Then as a playmaker, Gordon adds another ball handling option for a Nuggets team rich in creators. What I especially like is that Gordon is another forward who can rebound and push the ball, meaning that the entire Nuggets front court is capable of instantly shape-shifting into a giant point guard going downhill. And then as a shooter, Gordon is going to get the most wide open looks of his career while benefiting from the experience of having to work for tough shots in Orlando. Also, Gordon, at 6'8", 240 pounds, brings a physicality to the Nuggets. In fact, the most underrated quality of the Nuggets might be their physicality, with Gordon joining a troupe of grizzled veterans that include Barton, Campazzo, Millsap, McGee, and JaMychal Green. And this underrated physicality hints at another aspect of the Nuggets that may be going unnoticed, and that is that this Nuggets squad has an opportunity to evolve into a respectable defense, something they lacked severely in last year's playoffs. This defensive evolution can be built around Gordon, who is known as a solid defender, but on the Magic, he had so much offensive responsibility that he often looked tired defensively. The Nuggets also should be bolstered by Will Barton, who missed all of last year's playoffs with an injury. Barton previously was the Nuggets' best wing defender, but with the presence of Gordon, Barton should find advantages guarding smaller and lower priority players. Michael Porter Jr.'s defense has also improved significantly, as he's grown from a genuine liability to the team's leading shot blocker, and Facundo Campazzo adds an edge to the Nuggets bench, as he's exactly the type of pesky point guard that can swing a playoff game through effort and irritation. Also, the addition of JaVale McGee means that the Nuggets finally got a rim protector to back up Jokic. No disrespect is intended to Mason Plumlee, but Plumlee held the Nuggets back last playoffs, and McGee is going to be a sizable defensive improvement. Moreover, a bench front court of McGee, Millsap, and PJ Dozier could prove problematic for opposing teams with shallow benches. In conclusion, the Bulls are just starting the process of attempting to be where the Nuggets are, but throwing assets at all-stars doesn't necessarily equate to being ready for a sizable leap. Still, the Bulls are going in the right direction, and that is a change that the city, fan base, and players deserve. Similarly, the Nuggets have decided to give up valuable assets in an attempt to improve on last year's success, and I think whether or not either gamble works out, the franchises were right to take risks in order to strive to be better. As Sam Presti once said, "Scared money don't make none."